Council meeting for Wednesday, November 20th, 2024, and we are beginning at 6:04 p.m. At this time, I'd like to confirm the agenda. Are there any emergent items from any of the councillors to potentially add to the agenda? Councillor Langmay, did you light up? Not here, I know, but Councillor Peterson.
Your Worship, I just have a question under Councillor Information and Inquiries regarding the report from Wild Rose that we received 2 months ago on the rural renewal.
So you wanted to ask that in 10.1?
Yeah, wherever it's okay.
Okay, any other emergent items, anything from Ledge Services or Administration? Then we're looking for a motion. Councillor Peterson?
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. What am I moving? Maybe Councillor Wagner.
Councillor Mitzner, did you want to do that?
Sure. I'll move that confirmation of the agenda for November 20th, 2024.
As amended, I would assume, right?
As presented.
Oh, well, she has an amendment to it, don't you? Did you want to have something in 10.1?
Yeah, just a question,
Okay.
but I think it's already
As
on the
amended.
agenda. Yeah.
As
Thank
amended.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor for that. I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
And that motion is carried. We have no public hearing tonight and public comments. Jonathan, do we have anything online? Is there anyone here who wishes to speak? And I can give you just a quick bit of information. You can provide comments regarding items on the agenda in person, virtually, or in writing. Should you wish to provide public comments virtually or in writing, please fill out the request to speak at a council meeting form that can be located on the town's website. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on anything on the agenda? I think you're on the agenda. Okay. You want to speak with? Pardon me? Right now? Okay, thank you. Thank you. So we have a delegation. We have 2 delegations tonight. And the first one is Frontier Diagnostics.
Your Worship, I would just like to declare conflict, and I'll leave the chambers, and I really hope you come and get me when they're finished.
Well, we'll put it to a vote.
Stop it.
Not sure how that vote's going to go, but we might. Good evening, and if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself as you come to the microphone.
Just double checking whether the clicker works. Oh. Thank you. So hello everyone. My name is Alex Koziars. I'm a radiologist working with Frontier Diagnostics. With me here today is Sultan Nelson, who you all know quite well as the CEO of Frontier Diagnostics. Also working with us, part of this proposal, is Ricky Shen, who has been instrumental in establishing an imaging center in Ontario, which will include both CT and MRI. Today, I am very grateful for the opportunity to speak to all of you and share Frontier Diagnostics' proposal to add a CT scanner to Strathmore Hospital. Our proposal starts with this map. It's a map of southern Alberta. Here we can see different regions surrounding Calgary. Alberta Health Sciences likes to divide these regions into what we call local regional areas, or LGAs for short. Some of these regions are large, others are small. They provide us with important information about the health of a specific region. Our proposal is specific to the Strathmore LGA, highlighted in yellow, which is centered at the Strathmore town, however includes a lot of other communities surrounding the Strathmore town. Notably, a significant proportion of the Strathmore LGA, of the Strathmore local regional area, will also include the Siksika Nation, which we can see is highlighted in orange on the southeastern aspect. So why are we interested in the Strathmore LGA with respect to this proposal? Well, for one, Frontier Diagnostics has been successfully operating a medical imaging clinic here for nearly 5 years, serving many citizens from the Strathmore town, Wheatland County, as well as Siksika. Many of these patients on a daily basis receive imaging at Frontier Diagnostics. The Strathmore LGA also has a fairly diverse population, including the Siksika Nation, which Alberta Health Sciences consists and describes as composing of 10.5% of Strathmore's population, which is about 4 times higher than the Alberta average. But the most significant reason why we're interested in the Strathmore LGA are the significantly poor health outcomes in this region compared to Alberta overall. I think we all know someone whose life could have been impacted with better healthcare in this region. One of the most surprising facts that we came across when reviewing the health data provided by the Government of Alberta was that the Strathmore region has significantly poor health statistics compared to not just Alberta overall, but other communities within the Alberta region. These numbers were specifically worse compared to communities such as Chestermere, High River, as well as Hinton. For example, simply by just living in Strathmore, with no fault of your own, you're more likely to die approximately 3 years sooner compared to Alberta on average. You're more likely to die of cancer, cardiovascular disease, as well as traumatic injury. It's difficult to determine why these conditions occur, but what we know is one step in terms of changing these outcomes is implementing a better diagnostic test and identifying them. One diagnostic test that is absent in Strathmore, that is present in many other communities, is a CT scanner. And this is why we're here today. We're proposing installing a CT scanner at Strathmore Hospital to address these outcomes in an effort to improve them for the future of Strathmore. So how does a CT scanner exactly fit into this? Well, generally, the way it works is you would present to a doctor, either a family doctor or an emergency doctor, and they would then send a referral for that CT scan. This can be done on an outpatient basis with your family doctor, as well as at the emergency room where a CT scan is needed urgently. This will inform the doctor what is going on inside of your body, which will then inform what kind of treatment is necessary, which can include urgent surgery, or if there's nothing urgent identified, a follow-up to assess how this finding can change over time. A CT scanner is essentially the workhorse or the main engine of today's modern medicine. It can be used both in the emergency department to diagnose things like stroke, fracture, or urgent gastrointestinal abnormalities, such as appendicitis. It can also be ordered by your family doctor to identify diseases such as cancer or cardiovascular disease. What usually happens, for example, when I'm reading CT scans for the emergency department, for other emergency departments, is we identify the cause of the patient's pain and we're able to treat that pain quickly. But what's quite common is we will find other diseases that are staying silent in the body, which if not identified at this time, would be treated differently or would otherwise be unable to be treated, such as a cancer. In other words, diagnosing those silent diseases earlier leads to better treatments for patients. Here's a map centered at the town of Strathmore. We can see the Hospital of Strathmore located here. We see many communities send their patients to Strathmore Hospital. If a patient presents to Strathmore Hospital in critical condition, meaning there's a high risk of that patient dying, getting imaging is a complicated process. Sure, if the patient is not too sick and they're walking, talking, and overall okay, we can send them to Frontier Diagnostics down the road for an X-ray or ultrasound. However, if the patient is imminently dying, an X-ray or ultrasound will not help. A CT scan is needed urgently. What happens in this instance is that when a patient is actively dying, the emergency doctor will have to call the nearest CT scanner in Calgary, arrange for an ambulance to come to the hospital, drive that patient nearly an hour to the nearest CT scanner, and they will then have to wait there in order to get that CT scan. This is very dangerous for several conditions. There have been several patients from the Strathmore region who have died waiting for that CT scan, unfortunately, many of whom are friends or family that we know here. When a patient becomes sick, we simply cannot change this pattern of healthcare at that time. We must take action now in order for those future patients to have a better healthcare algorithm so that when they're sick, they can be treated more quickly. So we've talked about the short-term benefits of a CT scan. It can identify those urgent conditions. It can identify that cancer or that cardiovascular disease. But let's also talk about the long-term benefits. One significant benefit of having advanced imaging is that it provides support for more doctors to come to the community. Family doctors, such as my wife, continue to say that they are more likely to work in big cities because they feel more supported with diagnostic tests. Nowadays, family doctors are trained with having a CT scanner nearby so that if they're concerned about a patient, they can send that referral and get that CT scan quickly. Coming to Strathmore and practicing becomes a bit more difficult as it's different than how today's family doctors are being trained. By having more doctors feel comfortable, we can have healthier communities. In other words, a CT scanner is the catalyst for having a healthcare hub in Strathmore that consists of more doctors. So what does it take to get a CT scanner? What are the criteria, at least determined by AHS? Well, from our understanding, there are a few. One significant criteria is how many CT scans are projected to be performed at that facility. Our proposal is specific to the Strathmore LGA. The Strathmore LGA includes almost 36,000 patients. With this many patients, we are projected to have at least 22 scans performed per working day, which is more than several other communities that already have a CT scanner implemented. In other words, this fulfills one of the criteria of having a CT scanner. Another important criteria is the distance of patients of where they reside to the nearest CT scanner. Since the Strathmore LGA includes many patients from the Siksika Nation, there are many patients within Siksika who reside over 100 kilometers away to the nearest CT scanner. This would also fulfill another criteria for a new CT facility. So every proposal requires a specific plan, and Frontier Diagnostics has been working on this plan for several years. We propose investing $1.6 million for the CT scanner and the construction of the CT suite for Strathmore Hospital. In addition, we would like to cover the operating expenses of running the imaging clinic. With the ongoing work of a CT clinic in Guelph, Ontario, we have several connections with builders who also have licenses to build these facilities in Alberta. We would request Alberta to provide Frontier with a contract to operate this facility and interpret the imaging. In this way, we can save tax dollars associated with building the imaging facility. We have already received support from several family doctors in Strathmore. With your continued support, with your support letter, adding the CT scanner to Strathmore Hospital would significantly help the community at large. Thank you, everyone, and we welcome all questions.
Thank you for your presentation. It's exciting. It actually seems to me like it would be quite a legacy project for you and Sultan to be willing to do this with your group, where there's no capital involved from us, from the town or the county or villages. This is an exciting opportunity, and as you said, I can see how it would bring young doctors here who could then rely on the CT scans to help with their practices, and it could be a win for our villages, our town of Strathmore, the county, Siksika. I'm very excited by this, and my question, I only have a couple of questions. One is, have you been in contact with the MLAs that are here in Strathmore, Chestermere, as well as Wheatland County? Have they been contacted yet?
So we made a presentation yesterday to the Wheatland County,
Okay.
and they expressed support for this proposal. I think we've also been speaking to a few MLAs, which I think Sultan may be able to.
No, sorry, I don't think we have directly communicated with the MLA for the region yet, but that's part of one of the things that we will have to do at some point.
Well, if we can be of help in arranging a meeting, we would be glad to do that as well.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. Questions? Any questions from councillors or comments? Councillor Langmaid?
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have much to say other than I think this sounds like a fantastic idea. I think it's a piece of equipment that would be extremely beneficial to our residents. I think it would be particularly beneficial to seniors who wouldn't need to travel or arrange transportation outside of the community anymore to receive this type of medical care. And as someone who 2 years ago could have really used a CT scan in town, I would like that problem to be solved for people in the future. The only question I have is just a clarification on, it sounds like it will be run privately, but if someone does receive a requisition for a CT scanner, would that have any cost to that patient, or would that be covered by our regular healthcare like everything else?
Yeah, it's a great question. So this CT scanner would be run by Frontier Diagnostics. However, everything would be publicly funded healthcare. In other words, there would be no costs associated to any patients in obtaining a CT scan. In addition, there would be no other private related ventures associated with this. So it would be exclusively for medically necessary CT scans.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you for taking on this project, and I'm hoping we're successful, and I'm ready to support the project as it moves forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Yeah, so council will be, we have a recommendation, and you have the ability to make that motion this evening. And if there's anything I can do, if you need me to champion for your group, if you need me to go to meetings, if you need me to meet with MLAs or help arrange meetings, I will be doing everything I can to support you. I really believe in this cause. I think it's amazing that you would do this for our community, not just Strathmore, but the whole entire community. I think it's really exciting.
Sorry.
Councillor Langmaid.
Thank you, Your Worship. I see here on the paper in front of me that now is the time for the motion, except for I think I see Dr. McNeely madly waving at me because I think she mentioned earlier that she had a question she wanted to ask.
Dr. McNeely, did you want to come to the microphone? Good evening. Welcome back to the chambers.
And I believe Taylor has some comments as well. It's refreshing to see some innovative medical projects in rural communities like this. And I'm very heartened to see professionals like Dr. Nelson and Dr. Kay, I don't know how to say your last name, supporting our community and trying to amplify our voices to government to get what we need. You know, I'm a little family doctor, retired, not nearly as educated as these fellows. I proudly did my education at St. Francis Xavier University, and did an extension year with the Coady Institute in Africa for a year. And there's a reason Dr. Bob chose me to join his clinic in Gleason. I'm sure a few of you have heard of ABCD, Asset-Based Community Development. It can be summed up by St. FX's Coady Institute's founder, Father Moses Coady, who in 1939, when he set out to improve fishing villages in Nova Scotia, he said, "The people will use what they have to secure what they have not." This project involves smart people, big bucks, multiple layers of bureaucracy and government in Edmonton, but in reality, they're no different than those fishermen in the communities in Nova Scotia in the 1930s. It's about community building, social inclusion, and solidarity. Whether it's radiology or fishing co-ops or hospice, it's about co-production of services with multiple agencies to all make us stronger. It's about advancing the idea of economic citizenship, accessing economic opportunity, and accepting mutual responsibility. Anyways, I'm not a long-winded person, but I did come up here to ask a question, and I thank you for your patience. And I want to congratulate you, Dr. Nelson and Dr. Kay, on your proposal. And in light of this most excellent asset-based community development project, I just have one question, and that is, welcome to the club. What took you so long?
Thank you, Dr. McNeely. And if Taylor would like to come to the microphone. Good evening and welcome.
Hi, everyone. My name's Taylor Durant. When my daughter was just 18 months old, she was diagnosed with a stage 2, 8 centimeter by 8 centimeter Wilms tumor, which was a cancerous tumor on her kidney. The speed at which we were able to get that diagnosis after going to the Children's Hospital was pivotal. It allowed us to get her into surgery within 5 days and begin treatment right away, which ultimately led to her successful recovery. Had we not had access to these imaging tools, her tumor may have progressed too far for treatment to be as effective. Early detection is a game changer. It can make all the difference in a patient's prognosis, especially with conditions as serious as cancer. That's why it's so important we continue to advocate for timely access to CT scans. It's a critical part of ensuring that patients, especially in a rural area, get the best care and the best chance at a healthy future. And I'm so excited for this project, and yes, thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you for sharing your story with us. And is a counselor prepared? Counselor Langmaid?
Thank you.
Sultan? Counselor Langmaid.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to move that Council authorize Mayor Field to sign the letter of support for Frontier Diagnostics proposal for service expansion at the Strathmore Hospital as presented in attachment 2.
Thank you for the motion. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
And that motion is carried. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you for being willing to bring this project to Strathmore and area. And thank you for thinking of our residents and their health. So I imagine Legislative Services will be in contact with you, or we'll have a letter sent out.
Thank you, Worship Council. Yeah, we have the letter. We'll present it to you later tonight for signature, and then we'll be sure to send you guys a copy of the letter as well, and it will be sent to Minister LaGrange as well.
And again, Sultan, if I can do anything to help you, you contact me and I will do whatever I can. If you need me to march out for something, I'll do it. Thank you.
Question for admin.
Question? Deputy Mayor?
Will that letter also be CC'd to our MLA?
Thank you, Worship Council. Yeah, on the letter that's in your agenda package, the second page includes a list of who will be
Okay.
CC'd on it, and
Thank you.
MLA DeYoung is included in that list.
Thank you, Jonathan. Councillor Mitzner?
I have one quick question. I know there's a lot of government tape, but do you have an estimated date to open? Like, do you have an estimated date, like 2026, 2025?
So in terms of building the CT suite, takes about 6 to 9 months to build that. Acquiring the image, the actual CT scanner takes much sooner than that. This will largely be based on the approval process from like a government perspective. However, early 2026 would be a fair estimate in terms of when this can be implemented.
And there is space available for you at the hospital?
There is space. We actually visited the hospital and evaluated it, and there's several areas where it could be suitable for a CT scanner.
Great, thank you.
Thank you again, gentlemen. It was great to hear from you. We move now to our second delegation, 5.2, Wheatland and Area Hospice Society. Oh, we haven't voted on whether she can come back. No. No, I was just kidding. I was just kidding. We're not voting to see if she can come back. It was just a little levity there. She's not. So we have our second delegation, Wheatland and Area Hospice Society. If whoever is speaking wouldn't mind coming to the microphone and introducing yourselves for the presentation. Good evening, and for the people watching at home or in the gallery who may not know you, if you could just introduce yourself.
Oh, it was on then. How's that? I'm Glenn Kester, chairman of Wheatland Housing Management Body. And when I filled out the form for, there was hospice on there, it should have included the Wheatland Housing Body. So if you allow me to speak first, and then I can let. I just want to thank Strathmore Council citizens for the faith and following the dream of the Housing Board in building a new lodge for Strathmore and area. Early on in the project, we tried to acquire people to help us out, partners in the building. And hospice, they were willing to partner up with us. We had a short association with the Masons here in Strathmore, but unfortunately it didn't work out as we all had hoped. It was maybe a little too costly for them, or it wasn't right. Whatever the situation was, it wasn't a perfect fit for them. So we've changed up our plans to accommodate. But I just here to thank Strathmore. You've supported us all the way in making this parcel of land available to us. It really shows the support. It's prime land. It's got a beautiful view. It's a park there for the seniors. There's a lot of people looking forward to it. So thank you for that. And I'll let, I think, Keith speak on behalf, or Dr. McNeely. Keith will speak on specifically the hospice. Thank you.
Keith Clayton, the Wheatland Area Hospice Society. For the past 10 years, it feels like a little longer sometimes. But I personally would like to thank the support that we've been getting, not just for the Wheatland Housing and Senior Lodge, but the new hospice that we're trying to build from the town of Strathmore, the communities of Rockyford, Standard, and Ozar. And I'm not one to talk a whole bunch, but if we had the same support from the Wheatland County, we probably would be in process of getting it done. But thank you very much. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Mr. Clayton. We move now to the consent agenda. Are there any items from the...
Excuse me, Your Worship.
Councillor Montgomery?
Thank you. So later in the agenda, there's an item regarding putting the hospice on as part of the title of the Wheatland housing. Is there going to be any information provided as to why that's necessary or a good idea?
Would you like to hear from Mr. Clayton as far as the concept, or?
Well, I just like, I mean, like it would be nice if people could understand, I guess, why that's necessary or a good idea. It's.
I think
Thank you.
it comes up in 8.1, and will we be able to address this project, this concept, this idea at that point when 8.1 comes up?
Well, to some degree, I mean, the town, the town administration can't speak on behalf of the housing management body nor the hospice, so.
Mr. Clayton, would you be able to speak on providing some information as part of your presentation regarding the procedure of having the land title going to the Hospice Society, the whys of it, what it would involve? Would that be good in our delegation presentation? Or should we do that in 8.1? Mr. Clayton, were you planning to speak when it came up in 8.1 when the land transfer is discussed?
Mayor, if I might clarify, so Mr. Clayton can speak now or at the discretion of the chair at the time of the item in the agenda.
All right. Well, this was more of a greeting to give us thanks and to acknowledge the support of the town of Strathmore. That was your way of thinking then? And then you can present. Okay, so you can present in 8.1 as to this concept that's coming forward. Okay, does that answer your question, Councillor Montgomery?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we now move to item 6, consent agenda. Councillor Langmaid?
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to remove item 8.2, Community Improvement Program, SIP funding recommendations from the consent agenda this evening. And if council's all right with that, I'm ready with a motion.
Yes, that would be great.
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to move that council adopt the recommendations of the following agenda reports by an omnibus motion: 7.1, regular council meeting minutes, and 11.1, Community Futures Wild Rose, Heart of Our Community Small Business Awards.
Thank you. You've all heard the motion. I'll call the question. Or is there any discussion on that motion? I think you all allowed it to be part of the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
And that motion is carried. So we move now to 8.1, Wheatland Housing Management Body Resolution Amendment / land transfer, which is found on page 35 of the agenda. And who is speaking to this first? Kara?
So as kind of alluded to previously, we do have the hospice here, and there has been a request made to add the hospice to the land title, and so that's why we've got this proposed resolution before council tonight for discussion in alignment with council's strategic plan and our corporate business plan.
Mayor, perhaps I could add to it, all the existing prior resolutions of council remain in place. This is simple inclusion of the hospice into the prior resolution of transferring the title to the housing management body. So there's no other changes. It's simply the addition of the hospice to that prior resolution.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions regarding tonight's land transfer discussion? Councillor Montgomery?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I would just love to hear why this is necessary and why it's a good idea, and what will be done once this, if this goes through. Thank you.
Is someone prepared to take on that question?
Hope it can make sense for you. The Hospice Society and the Wheatland Housing are not are not the same organization. The Housing Authority provides housing for the residents of the area. We requisition the municipalities to provide support. We get support from the government of Alberta, and the tenants pay rent for their room and board. The Hospice Society is a separate society. We are part together to make a board because the Hospice Society's wishes and the board's wishes to build one building for the sharing of utilities, maintenance, housekeeping, cooking, different tasks that can be shared and make it easier for everyone. So far, in all our planning, the Hospice Board Society has been paying 10% of all our planning. They've contributed 10%, and 10% is roughly the square footage that their part of the new build will acquire. According to the architects, when it's completely done, they can give us a number down to the hundredths of a square foot. But right now, when things still changing, room sizes changing, we stuck with the 10%. So the hospice being separate, they fundraise for the last 8-10 years. We've been having harvest, we've had calves sales, donations. We have the wrap-up acre sales here coming up next weekend. And they've raised $4 million thereabout. We figure about $6 million to build the hospice. That is separate money. That's all donated money. They have to be accountable for that money. So when they build what's part of the hospice, that's where their money goes. So if they don't have enough money, or if they need to secure a loan, they can't borrow because they don't own any land. And they are part of this. By having their name on the title, it makes it that much easier for the banks to borrow money, CMHC, whoever they go for the money. I'm not saying they have to borrow the money, but you don't know in the future. So when the land is being transferred now, it'd be a lot easier to include them now. They are part of the project. They are partners in it. So I hope I didn't muddy the waters any, or is there any questions? Or
So basically, this request would be to add the Hospice Society to the land title in addition to Wheatland Housing Management Body.
Exactly.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. Questions? Councillor Langmaid?
Thank you, Worship. I just have a couple of questions. One is really straightforward because I see you here and you are the chair of Wheatland Housing Management Body, but I just want to make sure that it's clear. Wheatland Housing Management Body is fully in support of this, and you're happy to have them on the title?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yes, you are. Just to confirm, yes, you are.
Yes.
Perfect. Just the second question I have is, looking at this from the aspect of should something terrible happen, do you have an agreement together for some reason, if the partnership were ever to, knock on wood, ever fall apart, or there would be an issue with maybe the hospice doesn't end up building, or for some reason that the project doesn't go ahead as planned, do the two organizations have a plan on how to deal with that, should that happen?
I don't believe we have an agreement if we dissolve. No, we don't have that. We have come on up.
Sorry, if I could turn to CAO Scoble?
For council's information, the town administration is currently drafting an agreement that can be made into a tri-party agreement. So in terms of, whether dissolution between the two bodies may have to be worked out between them, but it's being, this agreement for the land transfer that's currently being drafted will cover that sort of eventuality in the town's interest, should that sort of situation arise.
Perfect.
Thank you for that, CAO Scobel.
Just to answer a little bit more, thank you, Mr. Scobel, that we've had 2 memorandums of understanding between the hospice and Wheatland Housing Management Body, and as well, based on the legal advice that we've received, it's been advised that at some point we do develop a legal contract, much like a condo agreement, where there's recognition and respect for both parties in the group, and that they both equally have rights. So,
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you very much. I'm satisfied with that. It sounds like there's a plan, and that's all I needed to know. Thank you very much.
Any further questions for Mr. Kester, Councillor Kester from Wheatland County? I guess you're wearing your own hat now.
Yeah.
Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you. So am I understanding correctly then that the hospice would be considered an owner of this land?
In part.
And so the hospice is planning on taking out debt on this property, is that correct?
Taking up what? Okay, you're hard to understand.
I asked if the hospice is planning on taking on debt with this land as security.
Hoping not to.
But then why would you need to be on the title then if that's not your plan?
Plan. Originally, we thought it'd be $4 million to build the hospice. That was a number of years ago. That plan didn't go ahead for various reasons. The number's almost doubled since then, and the lodge has gotten smaller, but the hospice increased their liability to maybe $6 million is projected. They've only raised $4 million. We're hopeful, quite hopeful, we'll get the money by the time we need it, but just in case, we have to have a plan.
But the plan you're saying the plan is to take on debt using that land as security.
It's maybe one of the instruments they can use for sure.
And how would that mortgage be paid, or how would the debt be paid by the hospice?
Well, wouldn't that be worked out with a financial institution?
I would think so, yeah.
If it went to that?
If there's any, I'm really just the chair of the housing board. I am part of the hospice board, but I feel we have the president here of the Hospice Society. I'm feeling a little more comfortable if they were included in this discussion too.
Yeah, and anybody that can answer these questions with authority, I would appreciate that.
Okay.
Dr. McNeely?
We're leaving all our options open. We're hoping to have our capital build fully financed by the time we've got shovels in the ground. By having our name on the title, we are anticipating that it leaves open an option for securing some sort of funding moving forward to pay off our debt.
Sorry, so you're gonna so you may or may not have to take on debt, but if you do, how will the payments on those debts be made?
I think that would be determined as we move forward with our funding partners.
Who are the funding partners?
Currently, right now, it's donors, but at some point in time, we may have endowment funds, we may have financial institutions, or we may also have willing partners.
And what is the plan if those partners do not are not, well, like essentially what is the plan if those partners are not there to pay that debt?
So we have yet to determine that.
Okay, because like it sounds like there's a risk that so if is the bank going to foreclose and seize the entire lodge building and the hospice altogether, or how would that work as far as if the debt isn't paid, what would be at risk?
I think there's risk in any time that you're building, whether it's a facility or your own home, and that's something we would have to deal with when the time came.
Okay, but when you go to the bank, aren't you going to have a better answer than we'll figure it out when we get there? I'll tell you what my concern is.
I'll tell you what, when we go to the bank, we will have a better plan.
Can we turn to Councillor Mitzner, who's been waiting to ask a question, and we can come back to you, Councillor Montgomery. Councillor Mitzner.
I'm confident that the lawyers will draw up a partnership agreement between the town of Strathmore, the Wheatland Housing, and the Hospice Society. It'll be attached as a document to the title, and I don't think we're in a position to make the document. So I trust administration, I trust both partners, and I trust that the attached document will be professionally prepared. Thank you.
I have Councillor Wegener and then not Councillor Langmaid. Councillor Wegener, then Councillor Peterson, who hasn't spoken yet, and then back to Councillor Montgomery.
I'm just sitting here waiting for the motion, Your Worship.
Well, does anyone have any questions?
Just a statement, Your Worship. I don't have any questions. I'm
Okay.
prepared to speak to it after the
And then
motion. I'll wait for after the motion. I think it's a good process.
Okay.
I move that council amend resolution number 164.07.24.
Excuse me, so I still have more questions, actually.
You can ask them after the motion.
Let me just ask Jonathan for a procedural question. Jonathan, if a motion is put on the floor, can questions still be asked after that, or are questions totally done before a motion is made?
Thank you, Worshiping Council. Ultimately, that'd be up to the chair whether or not you would allow that. Usually, once a motion's put forward, you would debate the motion, but ultimately, if you would like to still allow questions for clarification or just for more information for council, it'd be ultimately up to you.
I think what typically happens with us is we say we're going to ask a question and then we start making statements, and that can sometimes happen. So typically we've tried to put a motion on the floor and have discussion, but we could have questions come up in that as well. If that's, I think that's something that we could allow for sure.
If one of the councillors still has questions, our procedure is that they continue to ask questions before the motion is on the floor.
Well, you know what? I'll allow questions from Councillor Montgomery. Do you have another question?
Yeah, I can't remember where I was. So I'm trying to, I guess, get to the bottom of, so it sounds like there's a tentative plan or an actual plan. I think because you're here asking to be put on the title, there must be a plan to try to get debt that will be secured against that property. Is that correct?
I'll turn to CAO Scoble. He's buzzed in.
So as I communicated earlier, there is a draft agreement has been drafted. I've shared it verbally with members of the hospice and the housing management body. That agreement is what the town of Strathmore needs to be concerned about. That agreement is designed to protect the town's interest with the land donation for a number of different scenarios that could or could never happen. So, we've retained external legal advice. We're working with the bodies on that right now. But I guess from the town administrator's perspective, we will take care of the questions you're asking. That's on the town administration to protect the town from that. And whatever happens between these two bodies is irrelevant because the terms of the contract agreement for the land transfer would take precedence over that.
So I guess question to administration. So once the land has been transferred, you're saying that some agreement between the town and Wheatland Housing and the hospice would still be in effect where we would have some sort of protection from that land?
The agreement contemplates the dissolution of the operating of these bodies or the termination of their services for various different scenarios, which again, are hypothetical. They're in there to protect the town. They could happen, they could never happen, but all eventualities are being covered off by professional legal advice in this agreement, which will be executed prior to the transfer of the land to these bodies.
So once the land is transferred, if the hospice, God forbid, was unable to pay their debt, you're saying that the town would have some sort of agreement that would get in the way of that being seized?
What I'm saying is the town's rights by donating the land are covered off in this agreement. If you'd like to go any further or go through the contract line by line, I would suggest that we go in camera, and I'm not sure I could answer your questions. We would have to retain our lawyer to come and talk to council.
Deputy Mayor Wiley.
Sure. My question, I'm just going to use the vocabulary as I understand it, and this is for administration. So under the agreement then that's occurring with this proposed land transfer, there isn't a situation then in which the hospice could fold and that we would be the last dollar funder, and then through requisitions, the Wheatland Housing Management Body could just up the requisitions, that we would end up paying for the portion of that building.
That's not what this agreement covers. It covers the transfer of land and the cessation of operations of either of the bodies or both of the bodies, and the town making sure that its interests in donating that land are protected.
Okay, so to the presenters then, there isn't a situation then where if you were applying for a bank loan where it would end up becoming the town's responsibility as last dollar funder if the hospice were to fold?
Not that I'm aware of.
Any further questions?
Yeah, I have a question, yeah. So even if the hospice doesn't fold, but if the hospice is unable to make their payments, will they be coming to the town for money to cover those costs?
No.
I'm not sure what the payments would be, Dr. McNeely?
No.
Okay, so did you hear that, Councillor Montgomery? CAO Scoble?
So the town is bound to cover housing body requisitions. The town has no legal obligation to cover any hospice. There is no requisition for a hospice. If the council of the day chose to provide money to the hospice by resolution, they could, but there's no legal obligation for the town to cover any losses or defaults or anything like that through requisition. It's not under the same legislation. The provincial legislation is not applicable as is the case with housing bodies.
So another question I have, I guess maybe for administration then, would be, given that this land is a donation as part of our contribution to the lodge project in partnership with other municipalities, does this not have to be kind of passed by the other municipalities, since this affects like what we're going to be contributing? And does our contribution, I mean, if the hospice is 10% and we're recognizing that legally, doesn't that mean that our contribution is being reduced by some amount, perhaps 10%? Because we're only giving now 90% of the contribution. 10% would be going to the hospice. So I'm not sure how that's not affecting the whole deal.
CAO Scoble?
If the town did not donate this land, we would owe that amount of money in cash, and all the partners would have to pay additional money to buy land somewhere. So this is actually a discount on this project by donating this land. Otherwise, we got to go out and buy a 5-acre parcel of land somewhere, or we don't, the bodies do, and then that just adds to the overall cost.
But so we could just carve off a piece of this land that we're using for the contribution and it won't affect our contribution?
I don't understand your question.
So we agreed that we would donate a piece of land in lieu of a cash contribution. Let's say the land is worth 1.5 million. And so that's counting as 1.5 million towards our contribution. If we turn around and carve off, 10%, now we're not contributing 1.5 million, we're contributing 1.5 million minus 10% of that. So doesn't that change how much we're contributing if we're adding on a partner or we're adding somebody on that is not actually the Wheatland Housing Board?
Isn't the hospice part of the plan? And
So my answer to that, I mean, I'm just an engineer. Your construction efficiencies would be more than that 10% by building a separate building on the same parcel of land.
did you catch that, Councillor Montgomery?
Yeah, so like maybe I guess maybe I'm not saying this clearly enough. We're giving that land to Wheatland Housing as part of an agreement that it would form a contribution that's worth a certain amount relative to the total project, okay? And now we are deciding unilaterally, okay, in the absence of approval from our partners, that we are going to sign on another unrelated.
And now it seems like we're starting to debate again. So
No,
we're
I'm not debating.
we're supposed to be,
I'm trying to get
as
to the-
as
I'm trying to
Deputy
get to the
Mayor,
bottom of it.
as Deputy Mayor Wiley said, this is a time for questions.
Right,
not-
that's what I'm asking. I'm
What is your
asking
question?
I'm asking how it could not affect our total contribution if we are giving part of the land to an unrelated entity than Wheatland Housing. Like we were expected to give Wheatland Housing that chunk of land, and now we're turning around and giving it to Wheatland Housing plus another unrelated entity. That seems to me that it's changing the scope of our contribution.
I guess all I can say is that the hospice was always part of the design drawings put before council. If the hospice, like, basically if we put the hospice on another parcel of land, you either have to donate that parcel of land or the hospice has to buy it. The hospice is putting in the money that they've stated in the pro forma statements. So overall, it's been part of this, and you'll see construction efficiencies by co-locating them. You'll see operational efficiencies by co-locating them, whether it's the HVAC systems, the parking lot, the nursing stations, the janitorial staff, whatever. You see all those efficiencies by co-locating. If you separate them, like what I'm trying to understand is you seem to be treating them as two separate entities. So if that was the case and the hospice was going to build their own hospice in Strathmore, not co-located, they would need land and they would not get the construction efficiencies nor the operational efficiencies by being a separate building somewhere else.
No, I understand what you're saying. I'm not referring to construction costs or efficiencies or anything like that. I'm not even talking about giving the hospice a piece of land somewhere or anything like that. I'm saying we had an agreement. We have an agreement with Wheatland County and with the villages that as part of our contribution to the lodge project, we would give a certain amount, okay? And we have determined that this land is worth a certain amount, and we are contributing that land as part of our contribution, as part of the deal between us and the villages and Wheatland County. And now it seems we are changing the deal, okay? We're saying we're no longer giving Wheatland, we're no longer making our contribution that. We're actually splitting it between two entities. I understand that they plan on building together, but it was stated earlier by the representative from this board that they are separate entities. So it's not like we're still giving it to Wheatland Housing. We're giving it to Wheatland Housing and another entity. And I'm wondering, my question is, and I guess if this, perhaps this is something that needs to be deferred so that we can actually get some proper answers. Because it seems to me that, our partners could come back and say, hey, you don't have the right to kind of split that contribution up amongst however many entities you want to, because it's not yours anymore. We are contributing it to Wheatland Housing.
We're starting to fall into debate again. Mr. Kester, we talked about, I have a question for you. We talked about the different municipalities and the support. Did all the municipalities contribute their funds to the project?
Nobody's contributed.
Nobody put any money in before? I thought we had put in some money. It was
There were-
returned.
It was a,
But did all the municipalities put in funds and then it was returned to them?
not all, some didn't put any funds in to start with. That's why that money
Okay.
was returned. That was
Okay.
for Class A budget, I believe we're
Right.
talking about. That money was returned.
Yeah, Strathmore's was returned.
Yeah, and
Was-
so
were-
was the villages.
Okay.
Returned.
But nothing was returned to anyone else?
Nobody else gave us any money.
Oh, nobody else contributed money as part of the
That's right.
project?
So we didn't do the Class A. That is
Okay.
up and
Thank you.
coming. When the announcement comes, we will start the
Thank
Class
you
A.
for answering my question. Councillor Mitzner, and then we will come back.
Okay, I just want to say again, I don't believe the project has changed. It's still one institution, one title. There'll be two partners on the title, and there'll be a legal agreement attached to protect all. Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Wegener?
I'm ready with the motion, Your Worship.
Okay.
I move that council amend resolution number 164.07.24 in part to read, and that council direct administration to transfer the land title of the 4.93 acre parcel identified as Plan 2210023, Block 3, Lot 7 in Strathmore, Alberta, known as the project site, from the town of Strathmore to Wheatland Housing Management Body and the Wheatland and Area Hospice Society in future at a mutually agreed date prior to commencement of the construction.
Did you want to speak to your motion?
Briefly, I mean, this has been in the plan like this since I've been on councils, and I've been on the Wheatland Housing for 3 years. It has been the plan the whole time. The 1 point whatever $1 million the land is worth was the town's contribution to this project. I firmly believe in both the organizations, and I will be supporting this motion.
Thank you. And now that we have a motion on the floor, we can have comments and discussion. Councillor Peterson?
Thank you, Your Worship. I am extremely grateful for the partnership that Wheatland and Area Hospice Society have with the Lodge. It's been a tremendous enhancement, not just that they brought money to the table, but they brought a whole scope of expertise that has added to our process greatly. And so the motion made by Councillor Wagner does bring about that legal recognition that both parties have rights. And joint ownership definitely enhances financial security. And also, as the property values continue to appreciate over time, both parties can benefit from that as well. And we know that in this particular location, and with what is happening with land values in our community, that equity building will be a consideration going forward. Most importantly, we have shared responsibility through this joint ownership, and that's what I think is so important to the motion made by Councillor Wagner, that it makes it more manageable for both parties and for both partners. And can't say enough about the commitment that the Hospice Society has brought to the overall project. And I also want to emphasize that in the roundtables that have happened over the last 3 years, the extraordinary support that has come through for both the Lodge and the hospice from the communities has been extremely heartening. So to see this motion come forward is a rightful recognition, and I am very much in support of the motion.
Thank you. Further comments? Deputy Mayor Wiley.
Not every town has a beautiful downtown park like we do. If you go into downtown Calgary, go to Princess Park, prime real estate, right on the river, that island. And the reason it's there is because forward-thinking councils in the past set it aside. For the last 100-some years it's been there. I'm sure there's been temptations to, cut it up, parcel it off, make transactions here and there, but no. Councils stood resolute against those temptations, and we still have that gorgeous downtown Princess Park. Strathmore has a beautiful park too, But I'd like to save the park. I think 5 acres of beautiful parkland, downtown, prime real estate. The temptation is to start parceling it up, splitting it off, using it to pay down different debts.
I think this is out of order, because this is not what we're debating.
Well, I'm just saying that my preference would be to rescind the original motion. And it's such a shame that here we are again debating cutting up this gorgeous park downtown. Now, I know people will say, no, it's adjacent, but I think that's not very forward thinking. I don't think that is a very progressive way to look
Could I ask
at
you a
it.
question of clarification?
So I'll just make this quick then.
Oh.
I will not be supporting this motion. My preference would be that we would rescind the original motion. So that's all.
Could I ask you a question? When you say the original motion, do you mean the motion that was passed by the previous council?
My preference would be to rescind resolution number 16400724. But I understand that's not going to happen, so I'm not even going to amend it.
I'll go now to Councillor Langmaid and then Councillor Wagoner.
Thank you, Your Worship. I come from a very different school of thinking than perhaps some of my co-councillors. I think planning for the future so that our seniors have a safe and affordable place to live and to retire in our community is very forward thinking. And I think putting it in a location where seniors would be happy to live is also very forward thinking. We are not reducing, in my opinion, we're not reducing the size of the actual developed portion of the park. This is a parcel that's on the back. It's not developed and not part of the parkland and not very park-like, if you ask me at this point. I can't think of a better place for seniors to spend their golden years. And if my parents were in town, that's a place where I would want them to be. In terms of the actual resolution that we're looking at today, I don't see anything in this resolution that actually carves up the land. It is still 4.93 acres in whole, the same plan, block, and lot numbers. The only thing that's different to me is that the Hospice Society is going to be recognized on that land title as a contributor and a part owner of that land parcel, which I think is very fair considering the amount of support they've given to this project. From my perspective, the town is not, first of all, it's not a donation, it's part of our payment towards the project. And I think that's key, is that it's a transfer of land for the project as a whole, not necessarily for the individuals being named on the title. It's a transfer of land for the project. I think this motion goes a long way to recognizing the important contributions that the Hospice Society has brought to this project, in addition to the important work that's been done already on this project. And this seems very straightforward to me. It gives the Hospice Society the ability and to, if they should one day need it, to go to the bank and ask for a bit of support from them. And I understand that when we talk about, is there a plan? Well, there might not be a plan A, but it might be somewhere down there around plan G or plan Z. If things don't go well, you usually have more than one plan, and I think it's very prudent of the Hospice Society to think about this and to make sure that they're in a position where if one day they should need to go to plan G, F, Z, or otherwise, that they're prepared to do so. So I am firmly in support of this motion this evening, and I am heartened also by the input from administration that the town's interests, which are what I'm responsible for looking after, are going to be taken care of, and I think that's as far as I need to worry about it. Thank you.
Just to bring some context to the motion, the original motion as far as providing the land as part of the town's contribution, it was a unanimous council vote. Councillor Wagoner.
I just, again, there's probably people out there watching. I just wanted to kind of clarify things here a bit. I do agree with Councillor Wiley on a couple of things. If we were putting the lodge right in the middle of Kinsman Park, I would be dead set against it. Well, yeah, we'd all drown, as Councillor Peterson mentioned. But the thing is, the land that this is going to go on is, it's at the southeast end of the pavilion and going south towards there. The land itself will be, well, right now is gravel, scrub grass. It's not really a very nice looking place. The development of the lodge will enhance the area. It's going to beautify it. It's going to make the park more of a place to go. It's going to give our seniors the ability to live out their last few remaining years in a nice location as compared to a location on the south side of the highway or on the east side of town where they have no access to the downtown, their doctors. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there. And again, as I said, I will be supporting this motion.
Any further comments, discussion? Deputy Mayor Wiley?
Sorry, I just want to clarify. Did you say that on the July 24th regular count, the meeting where this resolution was passed, that it was unanimous?
I guess I'm wondering if the one you mentioned was the one that was done by the previous council.
No, this was just this summer.
Okay, that's the question I was going to ask you.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't vote in favor of it at that time
No,
either.
no. Further discussion? Councilor Montgomery?
Thank you. So I'm going to make a motion to defer this to the December 11th Committee of the Whole meeting for further discussion and information. I think I haven't heard anything about any information about why this is necessary to move forward on tonight. It would be prudent, since this is a new idea, to I believe most of the people on council, that we should not rush into it. We should discuss it. We should look at all the angles. We should understand all the angles and not just kind of sit here and presume or guess or hope that things will work out okay. This is a big deal. There's other factors at stake that need to be looked at besides just this isn't just our piece of land that we can donate. It's part of a bigger project, part of a contribution with partnership with other municipalities. There is I would love to see this this agreement or this this contract or whatever that was referred to tonight. I want to see what that looks like. So I'll leave it at that for now. But so that's my motion to defer it to the December 11th for further information and further discussion.
So Jonathan, we have a motion to defer, the original motion, so we can discuss the motion to defer now. Thank you for that clarification. Comments on the motion to defer? Any discussion on that? Okay, then I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? The motion is defeated. So we have a motion on the floor.
Yeah, and I'd like to speak to the motion on the floor, please. So I personally think this is a bad idea. Again, it's rushing into it. During my time on council, I've seen us as a council rush into too many things, and it's blown up in our faces more than once in a big way. I have concerns about the lack of, detail, the lack of plan that is being presented to us. There's too many details that are up in the air. There is risk for the town what could happen, and I'll remind everybody, people on council and people at home, that when the new lodge is built, if the new lodge was built as it is planned today, in the first year, we would be on the hook for about $750,000 of increased requisition, and that's not counting the hospice, and that's just for the first year. If the hospice, okay, is able to take on debt on that property, and they, for whatever reason, are not able to make those payments, okay, guess who will be on the hook for those payments? Unless the town is going to stand by and see the bank seize that property. And we're not even clear about if they can't make those payments, will Wheatland Housing be on the hook for those payments? And then Wheatland Housing could turn around and requisition us for those payments. So there's a lot of things that are not spelled out here. We need to have a lawyer look at this and tell us what our risk is, okay? Have we done that? I haven't seen any legal advice yet. I've seen nothing from a lawyer talking about this. This was sprung on us tonight, okay, with a lack of detail, and we're risking the taxpayers' money without proper due diligence. I'll use that word, proper due diligence. I'd like everybody to take off their Wheatland Housing hat. Okay, we're not at a Wheatland Housing meeting. We're not at a Wheatland Housing rally right now. We are at the Strathmore Council table. I mean, like, I'm in Edmonton right now, but we're at the Strathmore Council table, and it is our duty to do our best for, not for Wheatland Housing, not for any particular group. It's for the people of Strathmore as a whole and for the taxpayers as a whole. And we need to do our proper due diligence. I don't believe anybody in this, sitting at this table, myself included, can say that proper due diligence has been done. There are many outstanding questions that I have. I'm sure other people, there will be more questions that will, I mean, this was just sprung on us tonight. I mean, like, these are the only questions I can come up with on the spot. I'm going to have more that will come up. And so, since we cannot defer this, we should probably vote it down, unless somebody else wants to make a motion to defer, because we are walking into a situation where we don't actually know the true implications of it. And there will not be a deal that can protect us unless the board of the hospice, okay.
Councillor Montgomery?
Yes.
I believe CAO Scoble said that there would be legal documents, framework set in place to protect the town of Strathmore. And the motion on the floor is the land title transfer.
I haven't seen that deal. I don't know that it actually speaks to my concern about if the hospice.
Your worship, he's out of order. Our CAO is authorized to do that. It's an operational matter. He is clearly authorized to do that, and this is out of order.
CAO Scoble, did you want to make a comment?
No, I don't have any comments other than, like I said, my original statements, and this project was green lighted. This is a simple housekeeping amendment. I am authorized, and as a professional engineer, I'm being accused of not undertaking due diligence here tonight.
The other thing I would say too is,
excuse me, I'm not talking to the CIO when I say we have not done our due diligence. I'm saying the council has not done our due diligence. And I have a question for the CIO, in fact. Does the agreement or the contract that you have, does it refer anything to what happens if the hospice board cannot pay their debt? Does it reference that at all?
I believe he answered that.
Well, then, just yes. Does it reference?
I believe he answered that. Councillor Langmaid?
Excuse
Councillor
me.
Langmaid?
Thank you, Worship. I just want to say it out loud and put it on the record.
Excuse me, point of order.
Excuse me.
Point of order. I was still talking. I was not
Well,
done.
Councillor Montgomery, if we want to get into the technicalities, a councillor is allowed to speak for 5 minutes, and I guess I could start putting the timer on you because
That's not in our procedure bylaw.
That's totally fine. I don't mind.
Yes, it is.
I believe it is. I just looked at it the other day.
Yeah, you know what, so, yeah, that's fine if you want to time me, but I would like to be able to finish what I'm saying. And so I'm not asking anybody on council this question, I'm asking the CAO. Just to be clear, I'm not saying that the CAO has not done his
I
due
believe
diligence.
the CAO, council believes the CAO has
Mayor,
answered the
yeah,
question.
My comment is legal matters are a FOIP item, okay? They're not to be discussed in a public thing. It's not a draft agreement. It's still a draft agreement going through revision. So, it's not a finalized agreement. But council has authorized me to execute that agreement by the previous motion, which is before you for amendment tonight.
Okay, well, so, so should we move in camera so I can get my question answered then?
You could put a motion on the floor to go in camera.
Sure, I will move that we go in camera to discuss.
I'm going to
this.
check with Jonathan to make sure we have an existing motion on the floor, and the motion to defer was defeated. So we have a motion on the floor.
Thank you, Worshiping Council. Council's procedure bylaw does not allow motions to go in camera once another motion has been made.
Thank you.
Motions that are allowable when a motion's on the floor are motions to amend, motions to defer, postpone, recess, refer, suspend the rules, table, or withdraw.
Thank you. I do have Councillor Langmaid waiting to speak.
Yeah, so I'm not clear how I'm supposed to get like my concerns addressed if the motion is on the floor and I mean like we can't.
Well, I
actually-
think the CAO answered your question. We've debated, discussed. This has gone on for a lot of years. This isn't just
that's the
something
thing,
that
so-
has materialized. We've all had, I believe, Wheatland Housing Management Body and the hospice has been part of a project together. There are designs. It's a project where they've worked together. The last council had a unanimously passed motion to provide the land. Now this is a motion to add the Hospice Society to the land title.
Right, and I'm trying to talk about that. That's what I'm trying to talk about.
Your worship,
I have a crystal ball.
this is a housekeeping issue, as our CAO pointed out.
Excuse me, point of
It's a
order,
housekeeping
point of
issue,
order.
and we have a point of order
Point of
now
order.
because the actions of
Excuse me, point
the
of order.
counselor is perhaps
I've called a point of
creating
order.
an issue of
Excuse me, point of order.
We've had a
Problems.
lot of discussion on this,
Yeah.
and I would like to go to Councillor Langmaid,
you.
who has been
I
waiting
am
to
not
speak.
done. I'm not done my time.
We will
talking.
come back to you, Councillor.
That's not how it works. We are allowed to speak for 5 minutes. Fine. I don't care what the time is, but I should be allowed to speak without being interrupted.
You have been speaking, and Councillor Langmaid
was
is,
getting
you've asked
interrupted.
numerous questions, and Councillor
allowed to do
Langmaid
that
has
too.
been waiting to discuss something. So
When
we
my
can
time is
come
done,
back to
that
you.
will be heard.
I
No,
will
that's not
hold
how
the
it works.
place. I
That's
will
not how
hold
it
a
works.
place. I will hold a
That's not-
place
that's
for
not
you
how
to
it works.
speak.
I would like to finish what I'm saying.
When will you finish what you're saying? Will you ever finish what you're saying?
If you would stop interrupting me, I would have been done already. So I have a crystal ball, and you know what? That crystal ball has shown me that the Hospice Society will be coming to the town of Strathmore to pay yearly money at some point in the near future. Okay, that is what the crystal ball says. As I mentioned before, we are already going to be on the hook for an increase, okay, and this is not counting the old lodge. This is only for the new lodge. $750,000 in the first year is what we will be spending, and the hospice could be anywhere from 600. Well, so just
The
on
motion
portion-
is about a land title transfer.
$600,000.
The motion
Yes.
is about a land title transfer.
Yeah, and I'm talking about.
You're
that.
talking about what ifs down the possible
No,
road
it's
to
not
nowhere.
a what if. It's not a what if. It's going to happen.
The
okay?
motion
It's
on the
still-
floor deals with, solely with, are we in agreement with the land transfer to also include Wheatland Housing Management Body, but
Yep.
add the Hospice Society to that? Now, some might say that adding a second body like the Hospice Society would strengthen everything as far as concerns regarding financial problems.
You know what? So I guess I'll end my comments by saying if the Hospice Society board is willing to personally guarantee using their own assets that they will not come to the town before they have expended their own personal assets, if they should run into trouble, then I will be satisfied. Okay, if they run into trouble and they're willing to put up their own personal assets before they come to the town, then I'm satisfied, but that won't happen. They will be coming to the town in the next few years if it gets built, and we will be faced with either paying the money or, seeing them in some sort of financial trouble. Thank you for the
I
time.
believe the CAO mentioned that whatever is drawn up with the legal team will protect the town of Strathmore.
There's no way to protect once the land has been transferred.
So I will comment, this is about land transfer. It has nothing to do with the requisition, and the requisition is separate and independent and has nothing to do, the Hospice Society cannot requisition the town of Strathmore. The Hospice Society can ask the town of Strathmore, and the council of the day can decide, but they have no requisitioning powers to the town of Strathmore.
Thank you.
Yeah, I totally
Councillor
understand that.
Langmaid.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have anything to say specific to the motion, other than I do not appreciate the way that members of this council have been painted this evening as if we are acting rashly, or that we're not doing our due diligence. I think that's a very serious accusation against this council, against the members of this council, and against our administration. I also don't appreciate that I was recognized to speak twice and interrupted by a member of this council. I'm not sure where we go from here, other than to say that I'm disappointed in the conduct that I've seen in this chamber. I'm honestly quite embarrassed, and I'd like to apologize to the folks that are in this room tonight for having to witness this. I'd like to apologize to the people at home who are having to listen to this. And
Point of order,
it's
what does
my
this have to do with the motion to?
It's
with
my
regard to
expectation
transfer? Point of order.
that we treat each other with respect.
Thank you,
Thank
Councillor
you.
Langmaid. For those watching at home or watching here, there's very little a chair can do as far as trying to maintain order. I can't remove anyone. I can't remove a councillor from the chambers. And the reason being that you cannot do anything that would limit a councillor's ability to do his job. So it becomes very difficult to chair a meeting when these things are going on. I will say one comment about what was said earlier from Councillor Montgomery, that we have a duty to our taxpayers. I believe if we support this, we're also demonstrating a duty to our senior residents of this town, not just now, if the lodge is built, but far into the future, the very many seniors who will follow. We need seniors housing. There's no doubt about it. We know the baby boomer population is large. So we have to have some kind of decent housing, and having the hospice added to the land titles is just part of the process to move a project along that a previous council supported unanimously. So, I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
And the motion is carried. We move now to, do we need a recess at all? No. Do you want 2 minutes, Your Worship? Well, Councillor Langmead, make a motion.
Your Worship, I would move that we take a 3-minute break.
We have a motion on the floor. All in favor? Councillor Montgomery? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, yeah.
Did you vote on the last motion?
Well, I'm opposed.
Motion is carried. We're on a 3-minute recess.